Now that we learned how to select elements, let's put it into practice. We are going to create a macro in C# that zooms to a selected element. From the Manage tab, let's open the Macro Manager and create a new module. This is a file that will contain all our macros. Give it a name and click OK. VS Code will automatically start, and we can start writing our macro straight away. This is a new feature from Revit 2025. If you're using an older version, the code will be the same. There is already an example of a macro commented in green, so we can follow that template and write public void in the name of our macro, followed by parentheses and curly brackets. To test that everything is working, we can try showing a dialog box with the classic hello world. The first parameter is the title of the window, and the second is the message we want to display. Both of them are text parameters, strings, so we need to use quotation marks. If we go back to Revit, the macro is still not visible under our module. The reason is we did not build it yet. Our code that we write in C# needs to be compiled into machine-readable code. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code and run our macro. In the terminal, we see that our macro has now been converted into a .dll file. So if we go back in Revit, we can now see our macro under the module we created before. If we select the macro and click Run, it will be executed, and we will see our Hello World task dialog popping up. Let's finish writing our code and proceed to testing it. When moving our code from Python to C#, remember that we need to declare the data type of each variable. The method we are going to use to zoom to the selected element is called showElements, and it belongs to the UI document. We can get the UI document by using the active UI document property of the application. We are lucky. The code we are writing sits inside an application class, so to access the active UI document property, we can just write this .active UI document or active UI document, whatever makes more sense for you. It returns an UI document object, so we can write UI document width equals this .active UI document. The other parameter we need is the element or multiple elements to zoom to, which in our case is the current selection. We can get the selected elements by using another property of the UI document, the selection property. The selection property has a method called getElementIDs, which returns a list of elements that we can pass to our showElements method. So to access the UI document selection property, we can write width selection, and to access the getElementIDs method, we add .getElementIDs with open and close parentheses to denote that we are calling a method. If we hover the mouse onto getElementIDs, VS Code tells us that this method returns a collection, i.e. a list of element IDs that are currently selected in the project. So our variable data type will be an iCollection of element ID, and we can name it selected elements or whatever if you prefer. Now we have all the inputs required to call the showElements method. Firstly, the width class where the methods belong to, and secondly, the list of elements that we just created. Remember to compile the code before switching back to Revit. In Revit, now we can select an element in a view, activate the other view by pressing the middle mouse button, calling the Macro Manager, and run our macro.